Technology changes very rapidly, and at times it can be difficult to try to keep up. This camera is 10 years old, and in many ways it feels like it. But it can produce incredible results that match or best some newer cameras. Hi, my name is Jorge. Welcome. In this channel we merge creativity and productivity to try to live a more fulfilling life. 2020 was a terrible year. However, I would like to take a moment to thank everybody that contributed to the growth of this channel. All the likes, all the comments, all the views, all the subscribers. Thank you very much. It means a lot. By far, the most popular video on this channel was my X100 V review. The reception was great, a lot of positive feedback, comments, and likes, and I really appreciate it. However, I did notice comments like, I want this camera, I wish I had this camera, I want to buy this camera, I wish I could afford it, things like that. And technically, there is nothing wrong with that. It's okay to want something new, it's okay to want something different, and I personally feel at peace because I truly believe everything I said about the camera in that video. However, 2020 did affect everybody in many different ways. Maybe you lost some side gig or some sort of income, or maybe you lost your main full-time job, or worse, maybe a family member. Social media and advertising in general can sometimes play tricks on people's minds, so I don't want you to watching my videos and have some sort of negative reaction or negative feeling because you cannot afford a camera or you cannot get a camera or you want the newest and latest gadget. I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. That being said, I strongly believe that if you want to take photography seriously and you want to focus on your craft, then you need a camera. As simple as that. So today I would like to talk about this camera right here. The X100, a 10-year-old camera. This is one of the cheapest ways to get into photography, to start taking it seriously and dedicating yourself to your craft, which in my opinion is a lot more important than the camera itself. Let's get started. I don't normally talk about specs in my videos because I don't enjoy it, but in this case we have to. Especially because the camera is so old that I didn't really remember any of these specs, so I had to refresh my memory. It has a 12.3 megapixel APS-C sensor, the incredible hybrid viewfinder which you guys know I love, the ISO tops at 6400, and it has the original 23mm f2 lens, making it a 35mm equivalent in full frame. The camera has incredible image quality for today's standards, still has the rangefinder style viewfinder which in my opinion is critical to get you immersed in your craft. And that is pretty much it. Everything else is just worse than most cameras. It's slower, noisier, less resolution than other cameras, no weather sealing, lack of film simulations, awful battery life. While writing all of this, I realized that the camera sounds terrible, so I figured that I have to approach this review differently. I've talked about this before, but I only upgrade cameras if the changes are significant enough to justify it. I said that in my X100 V review, and I mean it. So I quickly realized that comparing this camera to anything else is not the way to go, because by default it will be worse. So let's get it out of the way. This camera right here is slow. Slower than any smartphone and slower than most modern cameras. But the image quality and the results are incredible. If you're willing to slow down, take your time and treat it almost like a film camera, you will be rewarded with incredible photographs. And when I say to slow down and take your time, I don't mean it as a style or a preference or a philosophy. With this camera, it's mandatory. The camera takes forever to turn on, takes forever to back button focus, takes forever to review the images, takes forever to autofocus, takes forever to change settings in the menu, and very frustrating how you have to press the AF button and then the D-pad to change your focusing point. I have described before my shooting style and that I shoot with intentionality, trying to get as much as possible in camera to minimize my post-production process, minimize the time editing, and eliminate the fixing it in post mentality. And that is just my style, that is just my preference. You can have a different preference, it's fine. But with this camera, there is no choice. Shooting with intentionality is the only way to go. Shooting it like a film camera is the only way to go. And if you're not compatible with that style or philosophy, then you will be frustrated. You will miss a lot of shots and moments and maybe even get to resent the camera. And that might sound awful, almost like a deal breaker. However, I personally think this is one of the most important pros that the camera has to offer. It gets you into the right rhythm to take your craft seriously, to think before pressing that release button, to be intentional, and to treat it almost like a film camera. And listen, I get it. It can be frustrating, painful even, especially if you're coming down from the newest, highest end camera or a blazing fast smartphone with mediocre image quality. But what if you're not? What if this is your first camera? Or what if you have limited resources because everything that is happening in the world and you mentally prepare yourself that this is all you can afford, so you're not going to complain about the speed? Just food for thought. The build quality is great, feels sturdy and solid, and the aperture ring on the lens is like all the other X100 cameras, which is great. At the top you have the shutter speed dial and a shutter compensation dial. Like my X100V, you have one custom function button at the top. However, in this camera, this is the only custom function button, which I have set to change my ISO. Which means that if you want to enable your ND filter, then you have to dig in the menu and enable it that way, which sucks. The electronic viewfinder is good enough. You can still customize it with extra info like the histogram or electronic level or things like that, which is great. The battery is fairly small and does not last long, so you'll need multiple. But the camera is so old that you can forget about finding original replacement batteries. Those are discontinued. You can only find cheap third-party batteries, so keep that in mind. As you can see, you can still get good results with a 12 megapixel sensor, and even newer cameras like the A7S III have a 12 megapixel sensor. Now I get it, that's not the main focus of that camera, but it still has that, still works with it, so resolution is not everything. The ISO tops at 6400, but I do recommend to stay within 3200 to get cleaner files, because at times the noise can be noticeable. The camera is missing my main film simulations, classic chrome, and acros. But like most Fuji cameras, the color is really good and it grades really well as well. In fact, I actually recommend, for the first time, to use the RAW files instead of the JPEGs so you can get a bit more out of it. The lens can be a bit soft at shooting at the minimum focus distance, so I just recommend shooting at either 2.8 or f4, depending on what you're trying to do, or at least avoiding that macro-like type of photography shooting at the closest focus distance. Other than that, files look good. Managing your expectations is one of the most important things when it comes to technology. I mentioned in my X100V review that if you approach that camera expecting it to be a hybrid of photo and video, you will be disappointed. The same goes for this camera right here. If you approach this camera expecting it to be fast like any other DSLR or mirrorless camera, you will be disappointed. It requires to slow down, to be methodical, to be intentional, to treat it like a film camera, and dedicate the right amount of time and effort for that as well. Life gets always in the way, and 2020 was the best example out of that. There's things we can't control, but there's others that we can. So if you really want to get good, if you really want to improve your photography, if you really want to take it seriously, you will make time for it. As simple as that. If you use a smartphone and you're used to taking 1,000 photos per second and reviewing them later, then maybe this is not the best camera for you. Perhaps you're really interested in photography, but you never own a camera. So you're not sure about spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a camera to use it for a month and then realize that maybe photography is not for you. And now you have this really expensive device that you have to sell and you have to try to recoup the money. This is the way to go. Perhaps you only have a smartphone and you want to get better images but also improve your craft as well and be more intentional. This is the way to go. Perhaps you have a newer camera and you just need a big camera for certain situations with questionable conditions. This is the way to go. And just for your reference, I paid 450 Canadian dollars for this camera. That's about 350 USD. That was a little steep because it came with a box, it came with the manuals and all the original accessories. You can probably get it a lot cheaper if you look. If you don't mind not having any of those things, as long as you have the camera and the battery and it's in somewhat decent condition, that's all you need. So if you really think about it, $350 can get you incredible image quality that bests any smartphone honestly, and rivals some of the newer cameras, and gets you started in your journey of photography. That's not a steep price, that's not a bad price at all. I'm always honest with you, I'm not a hypocrite. So I have to tell you that if I have the option between the X100V and the X100, I will always 100% of the time choose the X100V. In fact, I made that decision already last year when I purchased that camera. But this right now is not about me. If any of the examples that I gave you so far sound like you, if anything that I said in this video resonates with you, then this is probably a good camera to get started, to get you invested, and to get you going. But that is it for today. I do want to know, where do you stand? What do you think about this camera? Do you have it? Do you have one of the newer models? Leave a comment down below. And I want to say one more time, thank you very much to everybody that has contributed to the growth of this channel, all the likes, all the comments, all the subscribers. Thank you very much, it means a lot. Hopefully we can build a community together, so feel free to leave a comment, to share some of your experiences. I'm curious to know what you think. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe, but also do follow me on Instagram. I just recently started posting more frequently, so it would be great if you can build a community there as well, and that way you can see the photos before you watch any of my reviews. Happy New Year! Thank you very, very much for giving me your time and your energy, and good luck with your creative process.